and connect it up. Sorry. It's an action we want, and we're going to call it launch new view. Connect that. Okay, so let's go to the .m file. Here's our code. So this is what's going to be executed when we hit the button. So in here, what we want to do is we want to create a new instance of our second view. All right. Now, to do that, first of all, we need to tell this view controller, the first view controller, that there actually exists a second view. Okay, at the moment, the first view doesn't know about the second view. All right, and this is where these import statements come. And you'll notice that on both the .h and the .m, there are import statements like this. So we need to create one of these imports for our second view. Now, it doesn't matter whether you put that in the .h file or in the .m file. Okay, I'm just going to put it in the .h file. Now, to do a pound symbol on the Mac, you do the Alt button and 3, and then import. And what we're going to import is the second view.h. So if you start typing second view, you get the 3 files, but we want the .h file. Okay, go back over to the .m. So now the first thing that we want to do is we want to create an instance of second view. So we start with the class name, second view, and we want to create a new instance of it. So we do the star, and let's call it my second view instance equals, and we do essentially what we've done up here. We allocate and initialize. So second view alloc init. Okay, so now that will create a new version of our second view class. Then all we have to do is present it, and that's very easy to do. We can say self, and if you start typing present, it gives you a number of options, and this is the one that we want: present modal view controller animated. So we select that. Now it takes a UI view controller as its argument. Well, we've just created a view controller here. So we say my second view instance, and then animated. Do we want it to appear on screen immediately, or do we want an animation to transition between the first view and the second view? And the argument is a Boolean value, so yes or no. So we like the fancy animations, so let's choose yes. Close off the message call, semicolon, and we should be good to go. Okay, launch new view. So there's our second view. Now what should happen is when we click this, nothing will happen because we haven't put any code in our second view. So you can see that's what's happening. I can press it, but nothing's happening. Okay, so we need to change that. So we need to come across to our second view. Let's just choose that first, and then choose the second view.m in here. So this is our second view with our done button. And remember, we created this action, dismiss the view. Okay. So when we hit this done button, we want some code in here that will reverse what happened to start with. So when we hit the launch new view, this view animated up from the bottom. So when we hit the done button, what we want is for the reverse to happen, so that it goes, it transitions downwards. Okay, so all we need to do is call self and then dismiss. You get 3 options. We want dismiss modal view controller animated. Okay, and like the first method where we could say yes or no to it being animated, we can do the same thing here. So it takes a Boolean value, yes or no. Do we want this dismissal to be animated with a fancy animation, or do we want it to occur instantaneously? And more often than not, you will want to say yes. So you get a nice transition. And if we run that, so now when we hit this launch new view, the new view should come up from the bottom, and it has. And now when we hit the done button, it goes away. Okay, launch the view, dismiss the view. Launch the view, dismiss it. Okay. Now the default way of presenting that second view is with a style called cover vertical, because the transition is in a vertical direction. Okay, but if we want to change that, we can do that. So after we've created the instance of the second view, but before we've actually presented it, we could say my second view instance, modal transition style equals UI modal transition. So if you keep typing until you get the word transition, and you can see there's 4 options there. Cover vertical is the default value. So because we didn't explicitly didn't call this transition style, it just defaulted to that type of transition. Okay. So that's the default, the cover vertical. Then we've got cross dissolve, flip horizontal, and partial curl. Now flip horizontal we've already seen, because that's the default transition style for a utility application, which is what we created before. So let's choose that one. And something funny is going on there. Modal transition style equals UI modal transition style flip horizontal, and run that. Launch the new view, and we get the fancy flipping, which is exactly the transition style we saw in the utility application. But Apple did all that coding for us. But now we can do that for ourselves. So let's try the other two. So UI modal transition style cross dissolve. Let's try that one. So you get a nice cross dissolve between the 2 views. And the final one is called partial curl. And you might have seen this option in the Maps application on the iPhone. launch new view, and it curls up. Now one of the problems with this is that now our button is obscured, but if you touch up in here it should actually disappear. So that particular option is maybe not one of the ones that you would often use. Okay, but certainly the others, the cover vertical is the default. The flip horizontal is quite impressive. So if you are creating a utility application where you're just going to have two screens, a principal screen that the user interacts with, and maybe a second screen where they might have preferences to be set, then having the flip style transition is quite nice. So let's just change that back to cover vertical. Actually, we can get rid of that, because if that's the one that we want, well, that's the default value anyway. So run that launch new view and we get that, and then done, goes away. Okay, so that is how to create a new view controller. Okay, and launch that view controller or transition to that new view by having a button that we associate with an action, and within that action we create a new instance of our new view controller. We allocate memory for it, we initialize it, and then we use this present modal view controller animated method to transition to the second view, which is this one here, in an animated fashion. And then how do we go back to the original view? Well, we have to create a button to do that, and from that button that will trigger an action, and we've called it dismiss view, and we simply call self dismiss modal view controller animated. Okay, and that method there will reverse the animation based on the initial animation that we chose. So if it's cover vertical, it will reverse it so that the view will slide out to the bottom. If we chose the flip horizontal, initially it will go right to left, so when we dismiss it, it will go left to right. Okay, and initially what we looked at was creating alert views and action sheets, and most importantly the concept of delegation. What does delegation mean? Delegation means handing off a task associated with this alert, handing off that task to another method. Okay, and delegation, as I said before, is a really important concept that you need to get used to, because it's involved across a number of different actions that you might want to do across lots of different classes. So it's a really common thing to get used to doing. Okay, so that's it for this week. I'll see you next week.